everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Enlightened podcast featuring Team Galaxy Brain. My name is Tim. This is Jacob. How you doing, Jacob?
Hey, everybody. How goes it? What's up, Tim?
Oh, man, just a beardy guy sitting with my beardy friends, bearding around. I was looking at this, preview video of us that I have in OBS, and it's just I feel real beardy right now, and it kind of blends into my shirt too, so it just looks bigger, but it's out of control for me. I'm for you, but
no, I'm definitely taking advantage of the end of winter here and just letting it grow and get burly before I have to do anything about it,
Yeah, right on. Well, what have you been up to this week, Jacob? What's we both live in Portland and we're currently snowed in, but what's good? What have you been doing this week?
This week has been a lot of chilling, playing Talishar at home. I don't really think I've gotten out to too many armories or anything like that. I did go to another local store that opened up just on the street from me, and they're like a Digimon store, so I bought some starter decks and tried that game out. It's super fun. It's definitely a game that I'll play on the side, but I probably won't commit nearly as much time or money to it as Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's fun. The community was nice, and it was a good time.
Yeah, you should, next time we're at an armory together, you should bring your starter decks, and you should teach me how to play.
The games are quick, so yeah, definitely.
No, that'd be sweet. You were telling me that it has this mechanic where you use resources, and it when you play cards, it fills up your opponent's resource meter or whatever, right?
Yeah, basically the resource system in Digimon. This is not becoming a Digimon podcast, but right. It's a tug of war. So it's there's a scale in the middle of the table that goes. It's a 0 in the center, and then 1 to 10 on the left side and 1 to 10 on the right side. And as you play things, they all have an energy cost, and that energy cost moves it closer and closer to your opponent's side. And then once you cross the 0 line, your turn's over, and they get whatever resources you gave them. So you can play this really fun game of choking them out of resources, which will force them to eventually give you resources to have your big turn.
Yeah.
And the game is really built around combos, you just draw cards and you look at, every Digimon or every card I play has look at the top 3 of your deck, grab a card that you need, put the other 2 at the bottom of your deck. But it's definitely a modern TCG design. They're definitely trying to fix the resource problem and, hand management and all those
I like
things.
that. I mean, it kind of you think about what makes Flesh and Blood so awesome. And it's part of it is that your every action you take feeds into every other action you take, right? It's even the thing that people talk about all the time is you block, and then on your next turn you don't drop until the end of your turn, so you have to think about what you're doing next turn. And I love that idea of the resource system. So that's really cool. I remember I feel so Decipher, the company that made the Star Wars card game, also made a Lord of the Rings card game, and both of them were awesome. Both of them were pretty complicated. The Lord of the Rings, you had to each person had a ring bearer and also shadow cards, and you had to get your ring bearer across 9 sites, and it was just really it was kind of weird. It worked.
Super convoluted for a card game, but that sounds super cool.
Exactly. Yeah. But I believe there was some sort of system in there where you had shadow cards and your good cards, your fellowship cards, and you're in the same deck, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And there were deck building restrictions where you had to have 30 of each or something. I don't know, but basically you when you would do good stuff, it would feed into it was a pool of resources of it was called the shadow pool or something, and then your opponent could do, I don't remember exactly how it worked, but I love that idea.
The give and take. I think that's great. And the one thing that I was missing in the Digimon play, and the thing that definitely keeps me cemented in Flesh and Blood, is it definitely does have the feel of when you're doing things on your turn, I'm just sitting
Oh yeah.
and just like watching everything happen before
Yeah.
my eyes before I have a turn to do anything. So that's always a bummer. I mean, I feel like even as a kid playing like Yu-Gi-Oh and getting to do trap cards was
Oh
just
yeah.
like the most fun thing ever, and being like, ha ha ha.
Well, speaking of trap cards, what a
Yeah, no,
segue!
exactly.
What my
Clean
man, what a segue!
segues.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, that's enough for the preamble ramble, I guess. Digimon. What's the name of the store? Should we give them a shout out? This is so unique, right? Like a Digimon
Yeah.
focused store.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. They're called Thunder Kitty Games, in which
Okay.
is a great name too in
Yeah.
Portland. Thunder Kitty Games.
Yeah, well, yeah. If you're in Portland, go check them out. Thunder Kitty Games.
I know they're doing One Piece as well, like all of the Bondi games.
Oh
Essentially,
yeah, they're doing all the
cranking
like.
out.
Yeah.
Dude, they cranked out a bunch this year. They cranked out like 5 games.
Is that like man, the every time I'm like I always like see these new anime card games like Digimon and One Piece, and then there's the Dragon Ball Z card game, which like I hear is like not that good, but it's pretty popular because lots of people like that show.
Yeah,
But then there's also like every time I go to Fable on Wednesday and I see Vice Schwartz or whatever it's
Ice
called, where it's
Schwartz.
just like all the animes and like Disney and like all these things just like jammed into one card game. It's so silly.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. So yeah. As far as Flesh and Blood, this is a Flesh and Blood podcast, I promise.
Yes, exactly.
10 minutes in. So yeah, we want to talk about Battle Hardened Bologna today. The top 8, what we thought about the meta and everything. I wanted to call out, data. What is it? How are we using it? That kind of thing. And then there's a couple of spoilers that we're not going to go over all the spoilers because like I don't have an opinion on most of them because I'm usually wrong about those. Like, and like just as a PSA to everybody, like if you have an opinion about spoilers or how it's going to affect the current meta, you're probably wrong until we get the full.
Wrong.
Yeah, you're probably
right,
wrong.
exactly.
Yeah, chances are you're probably wrong. But yeah, so we just want to talk about a couple of interesting ones that we personally like. Yeah, that should take up all of our time, I guess. So yeah, let's dive in. Battle Hardened Bologna. I don't remember how many players overall. I'm just grabbing this tab with the deck list in it. But I think it was like between 80 and 100 players, which seems reasonable.
It's like a That's a battle hardened size. Like I don't think that's it's that's actually an impressive battle hardened size. Like I don't think we had 100 for Portland.
Yeah, I think there were like 83 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's healthy. That's cool.
Yeah, and like I'm looking. What's cool too is I'm looking at this list of top 8 people, and like I think they're like the top 8 is from 8 different countries as far as I can tell. So
that's rad.
Yeah,
more European events. That's so
yeah,
cool.
Ukraine, Croatia, Italy. Oh, there's actually 2 Ukrainian folks playing Flesh and Blood at this Bologna thing. Austria, Spain, United Kingdom, and so 2 Austria, 2 Ukraine. Okay, so there's 6 countries represented, but that's still pretty freaking rad, if you ask me.
Yeah, I wonder if those Ukraine, they must have a good scene out there because I know there was people who were making content like in the midst of war.
Yeah.
They were just cranking out fab content, and like that is one of the coolest things I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
To just be like, the world's rough outside my door, but if I can stay in here, stay safe, and play a game and like share that with the world,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So
no, it's definitely rough over there. So, and yeah, props to these players for making it out and getting a great result. So
yeah,
the top
8 is awesome.
The top 8 is freaking rad. Let's see here. I'm just since we're talking about country diversity, let's talk about hero diversity too, which doesn't necessarily mean healthy meta, but like it's still pretty cool to see. So looks like there's 1 Lexi, 1 Viserai, 2 Icelanders, 1 Dramai, 1 Phi, 1 Bravo, and 1 Oldham. So so that's 7. Yeah, 7 heroes. The only repeat with Icelander actually, and eventually it was taken down by Bravo, who beat an Oldham in the finals, and the 3rd and 4th place were made up of Lexi and Viserai. I want to talk about the Viserai in a minute, but Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know these standings. I didn't know that both the Icelanders got knocked out first round of the top 8. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know what the bracket was. I'm just looking at like the placement, so
Right.
I don't know who.
Who fought, who like, yeah. Well, clearly they didn't fight each other.
Yeah, right, exactly. But yeah, so what do you think? First impressions, like, what do you think about this top 8? Like, and especially because our last cast was directly after calling Indianapolis, right? And so,
Right.
how does that compare to this?
I think we and our team have had lengthy conversations about what this means, what this looks like. And I think I just fall into the camp of more rounds means we're looking for a more consistent deck. So decks that make it through the calling generally are going to be, just number wise more consistent. When you look at something like, what was it, 5 old hymns or some obnoxious number in
5 old hymns, yep.
Yeah, 5 old hymns. So it just goes to show that the consistency of that deck is super high. And in this top 8, we still see ice is the predominant. Like, if you're going to look at all the decks and see commonalities, ice is half of the meta still, right? Because it's going to be Oldhim, Icelander, Lexi, and I can just take a peek at this Lexi list, and I'm sure it's filled with Insidious Chill. And
maybe, yeah. I mean, let's.
Oh, no.
So,
it is.
So it's got.
We have Arctic Incarceration.
Yeah. It's got a lot of. It's got some lightning stuff in there. It's got like dazzling window and stuff.
Okay, so it's running Winters, so it doesn't have. It's not really running the Ice Fuse stuff.
Yeah.
But it is still running 2 very relevant ice cards in Arctic Incarceration and where is this? Frostlock and then Winter's Bite.
Yeah.
But this list does look very aggro.
Oh yeah.
Right?
No, totally.
But then we still have 2 Icelanders and an Oldhim. So that's half of this top 8 is ice still.
Yeah.
So clearly ice is still very dominant.
Yeah. And I mean,
I don't know. It is looking up for Bravo. I know people completely counted Bravo out. I know that, especially after him having the lowest conversion rate into the calling, everyone kind of joked that deck was, it was copium to be playing it and all this and that.
Which I don't understand. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that, or at least I wonder if there were a lot of bad Bravo players. Because, like, I'm just like Bravo is like a pretty good matchup into, or it's like a favored but not super favored into Icelander as far as I know.
Right.
It's close into Oldhim, I think. I think it might be pretty good into Oldhim because you just have Dominated on Demand. But I haven't played that matchup a bunch. It's pretty good into Fi and Briar, and it's like, as far as I've played a fair amount of Bravo after Uprising, and I've never lost to a Dromai. That doesn't mean it's not possible, but like it seems kind of hard. And so if Fi and Dromai were the most registered, and Briar were like some of the most registered decks, and then like Icelander and Oldhim, if all those decks got registered and Bravo also got registered a bunch, why didn't Bravo do well? I don't know. Like, I am wondering. I just like you look at Oldhim next to Bravo and you think, like, if like I'm just looking at the 2 pound for pound, and like it seems like Bravo is like the better Guardian, like, right? Because Oldhim just lost his insane just lost his insane Winter's Wail and all that. So like, what's going on there?
I mean, okay, so that's an interesting thing to posit, because I've heard people almost openly refer to like Bravo sometimes as having like no character text, right? Like, right. He can almost never hit that dominate. If he's forced to block or whatever, obviously he can swing back and be aggro. But if I look at the 2 Guardians, I just see Oldhim as better. Like, I can take every card from the Bravo deck outside of Purpling and play it in Oldhim, and I get to have Stalagmite for some matchups where that is extremely relevant. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, but but all,
even
but
just those minor tweaks make Oldhim a bit
yeah,
better in my eyes. But I don't have as much
but
experience playing
but
Guardian
let's
as you do.
let's take that stalagmite example, right? So like
Mhm.
instead of stalagmite, you have things like pummel crush the weak, right? Which is like you can like Bravo can just he has so many on hit effects, right? Or so many crush effects, I should say. He has so many crush effects that are so relevant, and I feel like there's a lot less room for error, I guess.
Yeah, I think it has a really nice. It's got to have a really nice Icelander matchup too, because you're just putting so much damage on the chain before
Yeah.
they have a chance to respond with frostbites and all this shit. As long as you're not making seismics, I think you
Yeah.
can get in trouble if you make a seismic, it pops early, and then they load. Most of the Bullander lists aren't going to be loading more than a single frostbite, but if they come into the Ice Eternal and they really load you up and just shut your turn down, I can see that stalling out of Bravo. But if
Yeah.
you're constantly putting like 8 to 10 on the chain over and over
Yeah.
again, Icelander will have a problem with that.
Yeah, and I mean, you like I guess that's the thing too is like I also hear things like, oh, like and from like really good like Ryan players like, oh, Icelander is like such a hard matchup, and I'm like, again, like I just have a different experience where I'm like, that seems
Right.
really easy to me, and like I was thinking about it the other day because somebody asked me, it's like, well, why is it so easy? I'm like, well, I don't know, I just kind of like play out a big attack every turn, and then like AB3 something, and like disc, it's like it like I feel like that's kind of just like how you like outvalue Icelander. Like, yeah, 3 for 8 is like really good, but like you can block and then like deal 10 damage, right? Like
Mhm.
it's just like it's just like numbers, and like yeah, the frostbites matter, but like you just play like but Bravo plays like 40 blues, right? So that's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
and like it's not just Icelander, right? Like there's like fine Dromai and stuff, but like I think those are favorite matchups. So like I'm really I was also confused when I saw the like really bad conversion rate. I wonder if part of it was like all of the all of Bravo's like bad matchups. Like Bravo has a pretty bad matchup into like Pistol Dash, for example. So maybe there were like
Mhm.
a lot of Pistol Dashes running around, and then like they all kind of ate each other up, or like
I mean,
pistol.
I feel
You know
like
what I mean? Like, uh,
I don't know how let's look at this Dromai list. Was this Dromai list aggro or big dragons? I know
yeah,
that aggro Dromai is really starting to pop up, and it looks like we got Blaze, Headlong, Dust Up, E Strike, Flame Call.
yeah.
This is an aggro Dromai list.
Looks pretty aggro to me. Yeah,
I think that Bravo has a problem with this list, right?
could be.
Because
Yeah.
you can put down damage on chain, and then you end with a dragon. Then you start
Hmm.
stacking up 2, 3 dragons, and Bravo's like, I don't know what to do because like you can go down to a 1 card hand and still come in for a ton of damage.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. I don't know.
and I
I,
mean,
I do know I'm really interested in aggro Dromai right now because
yeah,
I see that deck having a ton of great matchups, right? Like,
yeah. I'm really interested in Iris Dromai personally, but just as like a meme and not like a. I think it's really good. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point you just raised, right? Like, so like if Bravo has a problem with because this deck's not running like a ton of like Phantasmy dragons, right? Like they're running like Blaze
oh, they're
Headlong
running
and like
they're running the little dragons that are probably matchup dependent.
yeah,
You always run Asvalai and Chromai because you can give things go again.
mm-hmm,
But other than that, they got the Yenderize for Icelander, or excuse me, they got Themia for
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Themai for Icelander, Yenderai probably for Phi.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's
Raging
interesting.
Metamorph, interesting. This is an interesting list. Two
Yeah.
Nourishing Emptiness.
Yeah, so it's a mystery, but like, you know, a lot of like, even within our own like team Discord, there was a lot of like discussion about like, oh, well, like, are these results like, relevant to the rest of the meta because it was a smaller field, which we can talk about a second when we go over data, but like, um, yeah, I mean,
Do you think they're relevant? Do you take this information and does it change your armory deck for the next month before this set comes out?
I mean, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. Like I don't think that like calling indie really changes my armory deck, right? Because like there's no more like even if I were to go to the U.S. calling, right, like to calling Baltimore or whatever, uh, Outsiders comes out between then and now. So it's like it doesn't really change a lot for me. That could be a factor too. Is smaller field. Maybe people are just kind of like sticking on their like comfy deck.
Yeah.
Um, but
Play
yeah, I
something
mean,
fun. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I feel like the biggest suggestion from the Enlightened Mike podcast is play something fun right
yeah,
now. Nothing really. A set's about to drop. If you have an interesting idea, play that. That's what
yeah,
I'm doing. I'm just working on like fun shit that does, you know, slightly above rate things, and I'm just
yeah,
like smashing cards together and seeing what's fun. Playing Rune Blade.
yeah. Well, and that's like, yeah, I mean, I think that's like some advice that was circulating in Magic for a while. Is there was this guy who was like, and it well, his name actually his name's Shaheen Surani. I heard him in an interview. He is like blue white control guy in Magic, like the only
Mhm.
deck he ever plays, even when it's bad, right? And then somebody was like, hey, like you're a really good player. Why don't you actually play a good deck? And so he played like some like the best deck, in the next format. And he did horribly. And then
Mhm.
the next Pro Tour he came back and he started smashing on like his old like blue eye control list or whatever. And I think like that's just one anecdote of like just play what you like and master your deck. And I think that's part of why Flesh and Blood is great, except for like like Levia and
Oh well, that's
things
I'm
like and
not. I
Bolton.
don't.
Like those are bad decks, but like if you're playing a decent deck and you like playing it, then you're gonna do well with it, right? Like
I
and
think
you
I'm actually. I think I'm actually saying something a bit different. I'm saying explore because I
oh
definitely
sure
like. I could just be playing Berserk Rhinar and getting like better at it or whatever. But I'm like not doing that. I'm instead like playing new heroes.
yeah
Like this is such like a pocket of time where like your armories probably aren't super cutthroat competitive because there's no big event,
yeah
and there's like the armory prizes right now are cool, but they're not like cold foil weapons or anything that like
right
people
right
need. Like play something cool. Adventure. I'm right now. I'm saying like I'm telling people like go play a hero you have thought about playing but didn't consider. And it's
yeah
like
sure
because they weren't competitively viable. Like yeah, like now is the time to play Levia if you've never played Levia. Like it's
yeah
not a good deck, but you should find that out for yourself and have fun with it because it's not going to hurt you. You know what I mean?
I
Wait,
mean, I mean, I don't know. When you go 0-3, like, yeah, oh, I'm playing Levia for my first time. And then you like 0-3 in armor, you're like, well, that wasn't fun at all. Like, I don't know.
yeah.
But that's not
Or you
necessarily
go
what's
3-0, you go 3-0 your armor and you're like, Levia's great. I don't know why nobody plays this
oh,
deck. And
geez.
then you take it to a big tournament and you eat shit. So
Yeah, there's definitely a balance. But no, I mean, I think you're right. Like, I think now is a good time to try out decks that maybe you've got like Dromai built and you just like haven't ever pulled the trigger because you're like getting reps on Iceland or something. Well, now's the time. Why don't you just
exactly. Like we're gonna have a competitive season where you can get all the Icelander reps that you would want because Talishar is gonna
yeah
be packed, your armories are gonna be packed. Like right now, it's like fun time. Play some goofy stuff. Don't play UPF though.
or do
I have
if
no
that's
idea.
what you
I
enjoy.
do like it might be a fun format, but I don't know.
So there was one deck that I really wanted to talk about. And I
Yes.
actually realized, like looking over it, there's actually like it's not that crazy, right? Like,
Oh,
so this is what people are calling Pummelvis. It got made it to the semifinals. I don't know. It lost to a Guardian, which makes sense. Like, I think Guardian is a bad matchup for Vis in general,
yeah.
especially like I feel like especially Oldham, but it's pretty standard. And I actually they did a deck tech on the Push the Point YouTube channel, so go check that out. Those people are cool dudes. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's running a normal equipment suites. And I won't read off every card, but right, it's running things like it's running Deathly Duet, which is the new rare from Dynasty that gets +2 if a non-attack was pitched, and uh, or no, sorry, +2 if an attack was pitched, and 2 rune chance if a non-attack was pitched. So it's kind of like a 2 resources for 8, which is kind of cool. What else? It's running the Moth Shrill package. It's running things like Rune Flash and what's the other one? Spellblade Assault as well. That's a 2 for 4 that makes 2 rune chance. And then also it's running in the blue slot, which I think is really cool. It's running the Amplify the Arcanite. Yeah, so it's a it costs 1 less to play for each rune chant you control. It's just a 3 for 4, right? But all these cards, right? Like all these cards are like decent value on their own. But then you throw in a pummel, right? You play 3 red pummels, no blue pummels, just 3 red pummels, right? So it's like it seems like a pretty small like deck building concession to add pummels into your deck. Like I don't know exactly what he's giving up. I'd have to compare it to like another stock Vis list or whatever. But yeah, you've got this insane like Mauve Shrill package, which I think is like a really powerful thing. And then yeah, you're just playing, and you've got all these things that are kind of like naturally like 2+ cost that cost less when you have rune chance. So it's just like it's a really cool idea, and I'm glad somebody finally did it and did well with it. So
yeah, I mean, I've talked about this deck in our team chats for like a month and a half. I'm like, hey, I want to build Pummel Viz. Pummel Viz seems cool. And exactly.
I never really pulled the trigger. Longer than that. Like, I feel like all of us are like, man, wouldn't Pummel be good in Viscerai? And
cool.
Yeah, exactly. I've just been like, I've been too much of a coward to play it, honestly. It's like,
so I have taken this list and I have cranked it up a little bit. I've added some cards that I think are really spicy. I did drop Spellblade Assault. Yeah, 2 for 6, but the 2 floats over. It's okay. I put in Reek of Corruption. Reek of Corruption is very cool. It's 2 for 4, which is not you think is not great, but what ends up happening is you pummel it and you get in 2 discards. Yeah. You're coming in for 8 damage. It's really nice. Another card I added was Drowning Dire. Because Drowning Dire is 2 for 5 dominate. And when it hits, you bring a non-attack back. So that helps a little bit with fatigue matchups. But then you can pummel that. And you can do a 4 for 9 dominate discard, which is great. And then I added Cadaverous. I added Cadaverous Contraband.
Cadaverous is cool too. Yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Put a non-attack on top of your deck, right? Like, I played it and
no. Oh, excuse me, not Cadaverous Contraband. What is it's I always forget the name of this card. I'm gonna just look up my list right now. It's a new Runeblade card we just got. From
is it the
Outsiders? It starts with the C.
Is it the 3 for 6 that like where like your opponent discards a card if it hits?
Yes. Because
that's so good. Yeah.
Because it Cryptic Crossing, excuse me, not Cadaverous Contraband. It's another CC alliteration. Cryptic Crossing. The reason that card definitely goes on the list is because you want to overpitch on that card to activate it, because you need to pitch a non-attack and an attack. So you're gonna have floating resources anyways. The way that card reads is the first time this does damage, your opponent discards a card and you draw a card.
Yeah.
So you pummel that, and you essentially are getting them to discard 2 cards while you're on a draw card. Even if you're not off a Mauve turn, you've just essentially gotten 2 discards in an arsenal off your opponent. So it is like one of the biggest tempo plays I could think of in this game. It's funny, this deck is basically just if Bravo could throw arcane damage.
That's a funny way to put it. Yeah, I mean, like you play, if you're playing Tunic, right, and you like you pitch, a red and a blue, or like a yellow, or you could even just like pitch yellow and a blue, hold back pummel, right? You have 2 floating. Cryptic is coming in, and you pummel it. All right, it's like they discard 2 and you draw 1, so you're spending 4 cards, getting a card back. And then they're discarding a card. So it's like you're spending like 2 for, it feels like if it's a red pummel, it feels like 2 cards for 10 damage and like disruption for your opponent. So it's like, yeah, that's pretty sick.
It's pretty nasty.
When you pair it with pummel. Yeah, well that's
pummel.
That's the card that like I'm actually surprised didn't make this list, because like that's the first card that I thought of actually, like, oh, pummel this. Like I wonder if they're grinding Cryptic Crossing. But yeah, turns out they are not. But yeah, pretty cool list. It's on the website, so go check that out on FatBCG, the deck list portion. So we talked about this a little bit, but data. So how do you personally, right? Like this conversation came up in our Discord of how do you look at data, call versus so calling versus battle hardened versus ProQuest. Like where does all of that fall for you? Like, so you see the top 8 of Indie, for example, you see the top 8 of battle hardened, you see all these ProQuest winning decks. Like, how do you weight all of these things? Like
how's it each weighted?
Yeah, how do you evaluate these results?
First off, anytime I think about data, it's my favorite character on Star Wars TNG by far.
Totally.
But yeah, I weight it kind of how LSS weights it. So it goes callings. I mean, it goes like worlds, and then it goes nationals and calling. Then it goes battle hardened and ProQuests. And Pro Tours are along with callings, right? So I weight them the same way that LSS weights them, because the way that LSS is weighting them is not only by skill, but by number of participants, right?
Sure.
So the more competitors there are, the more competitive the field is, not because of the quality of the people in the competition. Like, let's say a calling is an open field. It's still just the number of people that you have to get through. So when we're doing that, again, we're talking about like consistency on a deck. Because in this game that ranks supreme, because there's not a lot of not a lot of super luck involved in this game. So when you're looking at a wider field, you're not really going to get too many wins off of just strictly variance. And the longer a day goes on, if you are getting wins off variance, your luck will eventually run out over the course of like, let's say 2 days, 14 rounds versus a single day, which is a battle hardened, a single day with 7 rounds. Variance does play a part, but you still have to be good, and your deck has to be good to even crack the top 8. So I would never just dismiss top 8 data of anything. Like I even like our ProQuest data. Like I like amassing an entire ProQuest season and looking at what decks kind of survive from that. I think that that's valuable data. Do I think that that data is as valuable as a top 8 from a calling? I don't know, because those are multiple smaller fields versus one highly competitive large field.
Yeah, and that's fair. I was kind of erring on the side of like, and like I don't remember the way that like Archer put it, but he said something about like you shouldn't discount, like ProQuest wins or battle hardened wins or whatever, but it's like it's a data point and like take it in context. And that's kind of like where I fall overall, because like I'm not saying that like battle hardened results don't matter, and I'm not saying that like calling results or Pro Tour results or whatever are the only thing that matters. I guess what I'm saying is that like take each data point within context, and that's where I'm at. Like, right, it's I wish we had more access to like and our community does a good job of this usually, but like I wish we had more access to like more in-depth numbers of like oh, like the did the Vis squeak in as like the cheeky X2, right? And then he like just happened to make it to the semifinals. Did he go 7-0 in Swiss and just got an unlucky like draw in the semis or something? There's a lot of like situations that you don't see when you're just looking at the numbers. And I guess that like the only thing, I mean and then there's this other thing with like Talishar, for example, right? Like what was it? There were like
the Talishar data.
There were like 169,000 games or something, right? And it's like there was this like matchup spread, and the first reaction a ton of people had to it was, oh, well, it doesn't matter because people who played Talishar are bad. And it's like,
no,
yeah, and it's like that's a weird conclusion to jump to, right?
Some of the best players in the world practice on Talishar. That doesn't make any sense. That's what I'm saying.
And also, it's like the whole thing of like, if there's 10,000 games played by people of varying skills on a hero, then like it's probably a pretty good assessment of where the hero's at. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to bring this up because like I thought it was a really interesting conversation. Um, but like, yeah, I guess like context is really important, right?
Right.
Um, and yeah, I don't know. Any other the closing thoughts on Data before we talk about like what was your favorite like TNG season with Data? What was your favorite Data themed episode? What's your favorite Data punchline banger?
Isn't there a Data episode where he's in like the hollow machine and he's like Sherlock Holmes?
Oh, there's a couple of those. I think there's several.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
No, that. Yeah.
that's premium content right
Yeah.
there. I think TNG is on Netflix for anyone who's never seen it. Go do that. It's very fun.
Man, okay. What's crazy, Jacob, is like we're about the same age, and like there are
Yeah.
kids who grew up not having TNG. Like I would like, it was like it was on, it was rerunning on
Everywhere,
like
all the time.
all the time. It was like new episodes were coming out, and then there was like Star Trek Voyager and Deep Space Nine. That was the fucking golden era of Star Trek.
I don't know. I feel like kids might be spoiled now. It's like with the era of streaming, like isn't there like 4 new Star Trek shows and like I think there's 2 cartoons. Like
yeah, that's
cool
true.
time to be.
Yeah,
like,
and they get it on demand.
Cool
I get it. I get it. Like, yeah, they have it better, but also they don't know. Like, I feel like kids nowadays would look at TNG and be like, "This is boring." Like, I wanted like explosions and spaceship stuff, and it's like just like morally ambiguous situations all the time. But like, it's such a good sci-fi show.
It's just good writing.
Yeah,
I don't want that.
Yeah,
I'm a child.
Jean-Luc Picard, or AKA Patrick Stewart, is just an incredible actor. Yeah, my
Xavier. The best.
Ooh, Professor X. Oh my god, don't even get me started. Yeah, my favorite Data episode it was one of my least favorite seasons of TNG, but like there's this episode where Dr. Crusher is not in the season and it's some other chick, and she's a huge asshole to Data, and she's like, she calls him Data. She's like, "Oh, hello, Data," and he's like, "Oh, my name's actually Data," and she's like, "What's the difference?" And he goes, "One is my name and one is not." But then they like for some reason have a court case about like whether or not David or Data can be like a member of the crew. I don't know,
because he's a non-humanoid.
He's an android, exactly.
But point being, when you look at Data from any event, take it with a grain of salt and then test it. I would say that's like that's what you should do with any Data in this game or any game. You should just fucking test it.
Yeah, that ties back to your other point too. It's like now's a great time. It's like, oh, Pummelvis won this battle hard, and like, is this deck actually good? Like, go play it at your armory. That's a good first step. And then like, it's like, oh, this deck might have legs. Like, say contact a buddy and be like, hey, like, let's run some games on Talisher. I think this deck is cool, and then you can make tweaks. And like, that's testing, right? Like. That's how you do it.
It's a fun part of of this hobby. It's the fun part of this hobby.
Yeah, I love. I'm not like the biggest like deck builder like from scratch, but like I love tuning decks,
tweaking and testing.
Yeah, love taking ideas and then like making them better.
I love building from scratch. And sometimes they're trash, but it's fun. And it is really fun to build an idea, it be close, and then you see that idea executed by another. I like that feeling because then you're like, oh, I was close.
Yeah.
I didn't know that this generic card was what I needed, but I was close.
Yeah. Man, I used to do that in Magic all the time. And like, I was never like I was an okay Magic player. Like I did anyway, it doesn't matter. But like I loved building decks because I think that like the deck building in Magic is like a little bit like you have more options because it's not necessarily better. I'm gonna say that right now, but you have more options because you can add any card you want into your deck, but you just have to have the lands or whatever to pay for them. That being said, there would be times where like I'd build this crazy deck and like I know this deck's powerful, but I keep losing with it, so like I'm gonna change decks or whatever. And then same thing. Like a month later, it's like some pro who's actually like a good player is like, I just came up with this crazy deck. I'm like, shit, I knew it.
Yeah, I knew that went in there. Digimon has that. It's cool. There's colors, but like you can run any Digimon in your deck that you want. You just have to be able to pay the cost.
Yeah.
Because if you have similar colors, they'll give you discounts. So it's really cool. I like that. But
Yeah.
if they did that in this game, it would be fucking brain shattering. It would be. It would be.
If you could have like
Dude, it would
multiple
be
like classes or
so
something.
hard. I would be sitting and play like. I'm like,
Man,
oh, maybe
if
this
everything was
wizard
just like
card, like
shapeshifter.
I can't. Yeah, because
Yeah.
even in the shapeshifter sealed format, I'm trash. I'm always like, in my head, I'm like, Runeblade and Warrior goes together because they both have swords, and it's like that deck sucked, and I was pissed. I was like, this deck should be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I should
Yeah.
be swinging arcane damage and big sword attacks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm definitely in sealed. I have fallen into that trap sometimes of like I just want to build like this cool like thing, and then yeah, it sucks. I'm like, well, but at least I had a cool deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of sealed and draft,
Oh yeah. Let's talk about some cards we're excited to draft in Outsiders. Which I like
yeah,
just real quickly. I mean, how do you feel about like just drafting in Outsiders? Are you excited for this new like 6 hero format or whatever?
yeah, I'm super excited. I don't, I have not played a lot of Magic, but the Magic
Mhm.
that I have played is draft.
Yeah.
Um, and Uprising was, and I'll say this, I'm not like a veteran drafter or like whatever. It was first to draft in Flesh and Blood, and it was not great. I preferred most of my Magic drafting over drafting Uprising, quite a bit. I am super duper excited for this new format because this Outsiders format is even different from what you're capable of doing within a Magic
Yeah.
draft.
Yeah.
The amount of options you're gonna have, and really it'll all click in people's minds what directions we can go when all of the weapons have been shown,
Yeah.
and we really know like what hero chooses what weapon and so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm very excited, especially with the hybrid cards.
Yeah.
I generic cards. I think the generic card pool is probably going to be very small, which I also think is super smart for the game.
Yeah.
They're doing some smart things with this set
I
that I
think
could talk
generic
about
cards
for a
just
while.
kind of like limit the design space. So I'm definitely happy to like we've got a bunch of like good, like accessible, just like commons like Razor Reflex and Pummel and like
So
Sink Below and stuff, right?
there's
And
been
like
there's oh go ahead.
oh no, you go ahead. You go.
I was gonna say there's been some chatter on Twitter about the reprints in this set, and I think that Fab should lean into common generic reprints among sets.
Totally.
It's like I don't, especially in draftable sets, like I just need a good drafting experience, and it's okay for me to get more. The card that we're talking about right now is Come to Fight, which is a 1 cost. Your next full cycle in the red, 1 cost.
Yeah.
Your next attack is +3. That's a decent generic. It's not breaking the game, but we also don't need that card power crept. I don't need Flesh and Blood to be like, oh, we can't print this card again, so we have to figure out some new way to make it tricky. It's like, no, just reprint it. It'd be cool if it was a new piece of art, but that costs money. I understand.
Yeah.
So I think if the game really sticks to that kind of thing and we kind of slow down, and that's why I like the hybrid cards. The hybrid cards are slowing down power creep too, because they're only going to be accessible by a certain number of classes. So if they release some really powerful attack reaction or some really powerful defense reaction, but they're like, hey, only assassins and ninjas can use this.
Yeah.
It doesn't break the back of
I
the
like
rest
that.
of the game.
Yeah, so it gives access to more than one class, but it doesn't like it's not like you're printing another Pummel, right? Where like any class could use it. Not that every class is, but you know what I'm saying.
Every class should use Pummel.
Yeah, every class should use Pummel. Right? No, I think I'm also like you kind of alluded to this, but I'm also excited for the drafting because like I don't think that the 6 heroes will inform your strategy and what cards you're picking, but I think there's going to be a really cool tension because it's not 6 different classes. It's 2 ninja, 2 ranger,
exactly.
2 assassins, right? So I think that like it's really interesting because it gives you all those options, but there's going to be tension, right, between the 2 different heroes within each class. There's still going to be the thing you get from generics, right? Like if there's like a primo generic, right? Like everybody's going to want to draft that. it won't be that, but or like the dual class cards, right? Those will have the tension between those two classes, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's gonna be really fun. But
you get to stay open longer. You know,
yeah.
that term of open in drafts, you get
Yeah.
to be a bit more maneuverable and make more important decisions later in your drafts. And I think that that's what everybody has talked about missing from Uprising for sure.
Yeah, and exactly that's the like kind of the feedback that I heard from most, like, you know, pros on podcasts and just friends, right? Is like
Right.
is it felt like it was like on a track, like it was, or on like a on wheels or whatever.
And I think even
whatever
if
they, you know, you want to call it.
yeah, I think even if you don't have the language for that, like even if it was your first set drafting ever, I think you would have that feeling where you're like, oh, I can't. I mean, I've picked so many ninja cards at this point. I can't not pick a ninja card because then I won't have a playable deck. Like
Yeah.
you just get stuck in that situation. Yeah, let's talk about some of these really spicy spoilers that came out. It's been a while since we last talked, so quite a bit of spoilers have come out. But we're not going to cover all of them. We're just going to cover the ones that I want to talk about.
Yeah. Well, let's go over this first one.
Yeah, the newest one, Dishonor, the one that just dropped. That collectively Fab Twitter is losing their mind over for good reason. This card is awesome, and it's awesome for a lot of reasons. I don't think everyone is realizing up front. Because there's two ways to look at this card. People are looking at this card and like, oh my gosh, this game is. I saw one post that was like, this game is so dumb. They were already complaining, and they were like, this is just like such a broken card. Yada yada yada, and I was just like, yeah, if you're letting this hit, you are bad at the game, and you probably deserve to lose that round because this is so telegraphed. You have to have 3 attacks on the chain before it comes. If you see the first 2, stop blocking, or at least save yourself some armor or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. So basically, Dishonor is a card. It is a blue that blocks for 3, comes in for 2. If Bonds of Ancestry was your last attack, it gets +2. If Bonds of Ancestry, Surging Strike, and Descendant Gustwave, a card we don't know yet, are on the combat chain, and this hits, hero loses all abilities for the rest of the game. So that is a very, very spicy text.
Yeah.
I like the design space. It's moving the game in a direction of kind of what Regicide was doing. This isn't an alternate win con, but for some decks it is.
Sure.
For some decks, this is an alt win con. You hit this on Dromai, deck's kind of dead in the water. What are some other heroes you could think of that are like dead in the water? You hit them with this, the deck cannot do the thing the deck does anymore.
Rhinar, Viserai, Katsu, Dory.
Dory's done. Dory is like finite with this hits her.
Right. What else? There's I mean, like, you know, Chain, if that were still a thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it completely stops Viserai, because you're shaving 2-3 damage off a turn.
Yeah,
that's bad.
It slows them down.
That's not back. Yeah, it's not backbreaking.
Kano turns off Kano.
That's backbreaking. That's the game's over.
Yeah. What else? But like, I mean, yeah. So it definitely, like, if this pops off somehow, yeah, that's backbreaking. But it's like you said, it's like when is this hitting? Like,
okay,
don't get me wrong, this is powerful, and I think that the threat of this card is a lot better than the card actually is.
But that's the trick. Is like that's what Fi left from ninjas. The trick of ninja is that they're small attacks that are easy to block, but should have relevant on hits. Ninjas want you to block. Yeah. Ninjas want you to commit cards from hand, and then they want to leak damage, and then they just want to do that over and over again. And that's not what Fi was really built around. Fi was built around long chains to leak damage. It was like, ooh, I got to chain 5, and now you're messed up.
Mm-hmm.
What I like ninjas more is when they do, here's an on hit for 2 that's you should consider blocking. And they're like, nah, I don't want to. And you're like, okay, here's an on hit for 4 damage. You should probably block this. And they're like, no, I don't want to block it. And you're doing that exchange over and over again because a smart player is being asked, do you know what relevant on hits I have left in my deck? Do you know where this combo line is going? And it allows the ninja player to have this like tricky element. That's what I want. That's what this card's bringing to the game. That's what makes me so excited about that. Is that if I play Surging Strike and I play Descendant Gust Wave, that already is probably like 9 damage, 8 to 9 damage. We don't know Descendant yet.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so I'm already asking my opponent
it's the 2 for 5 go again.
2 for 5 go again, yeah. So like you're already asking.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you put Surging on the line, your opponent's being like, holy shit, can my opponent get Dishonor right now? Is that in the line? So I want to walk people through some tricky Dishonor.
I also
like
too that this. So like you look at like Surging Strike, it's also the combo starter for another combo line, which I really like.
Sorry, can you say that again? You put it out.
Oh, Surging Strike is also the combo starter for the Mugenshi Lord of the Wind line. And so I really like that because you can go Surging Strike and people are like, oh, well, like, which like, you know, I don't think they're ever like, I think if they're smart, they're not blocking the Surging Strike anyway. But like they can't really like play around like, oh, well, like he's like before you come to Surging Strike, it's like, oh, well, they're going to whelm and Gust Wave. Like that's like just what they're going to do because that's the only option if they want to keep this combat chain going. But this is nice because you can then go, you know, if you can like set up a situation where you Surging Strike and then Surging Strike hits and you discard and tutor with Katsu, you can get the other line that they're not prepared for, right? Like, does that make sense? You have it gives you some utility with Katsu's hero power, which I think is really cool because that's like just looking at it, it's a very powerful effect, right? And just being able to like discard a card and then get any card you want from your deck, well, with you know the combo cost 0 or whatever. So I think that like having this like other option is super, super cool.
So the other thing I want to talk about, because the surging into Whelming Gust Wave is also relevant on this card because of the other card that's on here, which is Bonds of Ancestry. Bonds of Ancestry is a 2 for 4 with combo. It says if a card with Gust Wave in its name was the last attack this combat chain, this costs 2 less, so it'll make it a 0 cost. And it gains go again. And when this attacks, not hits, when this attacks, you may banish a card with combo from your graveyard. If you do, search your deck for a card with the same name, banish it, then shuffle. You may play it this combat chain. So what's really cool about this is you can go Surging, Whelming, Bonds. Now, when you play the Bond, you're going to be able to fish any card that's in your graveyard out of your deck. So let's say you get a Dishonor early. It might actually be better to block with that Dishonor early than it would be to pitch it for the blue because you're going to have it in graveyard. Once it's in graveyard, it is loaded for the next time you just get Surging and Bonds. You have this really pretty much pre-programmed line because you're going to play Surging. If it hits, which it should, you're going to Katsu. You're going to Katsu up your Descendant Gust Wave, play your Descendant. Bonds comes in for 0. You're going to get your Dishonor from graveyard. And then you just pulled that line out of thin air.
Yeah.
Also, Dishonor is a 2 cost, so it can be tutored with Pouncing Links.
Ooh.
So in the matchups, where it's very relevant.
Attack. Or what is it?
It's a 2 attack. Yeah, it's a 2 attack. So in the matchups where it's super relevant, your Dories, your what's another hero we listed off? That's like it's like back breaking. Like Reinhardt, not so much. You know, Reinhardt can still do fun stuff without the intimidates. It just slows him down.
Yeah, but like any hero that has Dory is a great example. If they have their ability as a core part of their game,
then you probably run Mask of the Pouncing League to guarantee this goes through.
Yeah.
On the limited side, Dishonor is a 2, so if you Benji this, it cannot be blocked.
Yeah. That's true.
People talked about the combo. It's like, well, Bonds of Ancestry gives it +2, making it a 4. If you're Benji, you just throw a Kodachi in the middle there. So you play Bonds of Ancestry, you Kodachi for 1. That'll not break the combat chain, but it'll make it so that
yeah.
Bonds is 2 chains behind. Dishonor is coming in for 2 now with an unblockable. If your opponent doesn't have any armor,
Oh,
they're in
that's
a
a good
really
point.
bad spot.
Yeah.
Or if they do have armor and you have attack reaction, it becomes spicy. And like we were talking about before the cast started, I think Outsiders might take us into a reaction step phase for the game, which
Love
is
it.
what I really want to see.
I
really want to see people playing poker. I want to see people being like seeing these long reaction chains, because we don't have that yet. There's only a couple of heroes that are like, oh, I play 2 attack reactions, and it's like, oh, I play 2 defense reactions, and that's one of the most exciting interactions of this whole game.
No, I like, I'm really excited for Outsiders, and I think there's a lot of cool mechanics coming out. Like, I think you just did a really great job of highlighting all the different like lines with Dishonored. So yeah, I'm really excited. And go check out our wrapping this up abruptly because
you're good.
Bad planning, but go check out our YouTube page. You're probably watching this right now on YouTube. Good for you. We're also on Spotify. Go check us out on Twitter. Enlightened_Mike. Jacob's at G
Williker.
Yeah, that starts with a J.
Right.
And
thanks for joining us, y'all.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And don't forget to smash like, subscribe, etc. We're doing a giveaway, so hit that subscribe button and you'll be the first chance to win. And we'll catch you on the flip side.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.